Resistance Chicks. It is February. No, it's not February anymore. It's March 5th, 2017.
Notice that tapping?
Tip, tip, tap.
The tapping. It could be the government tapping. We all know that the government's watching everything we think they do. So why is this news?
That's a very good question. Our laptops actually have pieces of tape over the camera.
By now you have heard that Trump has come out with a set of tweets.
Wonderful tweets.
That accuses the Obama administration of wiretapping his Trump towers. Now, let me just go over these tweets with you really quick so you know what we're talking about. First, he says, I bet a good lawyer could make a great case out of the fact that President Obama was tapping my phones in October just prior to the election.
I love that that's his first tweet.
Is it legal for a sitting president to be wiretapping a race for president prior to an election turned down by court earlier? A new low. Let me just tell him that he is a really good tweeter. Because he knows how to get what he needs to do in like those 120 characters.
Yeah.
Just out. I love this. The same Russian ambassador that met Jeff Sessions visited the White House 22 times and 4 times alone last year.
Obama White House.
Terrible. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. And then, the first meeting of Jeff Sessions had with a Russian ambassador was set up by Obama administration under education program for 100 ambassadors. So in that, he's doing Jeff Sessions and the Obama wiretapping. Now, here's the thing about this. Major news sources have written in their papers, New York Times, Washington Post, that in June, the Obama administration, I say administration because what I mean is everybody under him. The Attorney General is under the Obama administration.
Right.
Okay? So I was thinking about this earlier when Obama, they don't deny it, but they kind of deny it, right? And the way they said it, it's kind of like, did you know it's illegal to have your cow get loose? Because you can go to jail.
Depends on what state you're living in.
Well, in Ohio, you can go to jail. We have a friend who went to jail because his cow got loose. Now, the Attorney General goes to the FISA court because they want to tap Donald Trump. Okay? Of course Obama knows about it. He gets intelligence briefings. You think that they're not going to tell the President of the United States that this is not a collusion, that you got some rogue department, DOJ?
It was probably plausible deniability.
We're going to get to an interview with Mark Levine who lays this all out. So the FISA court in June was actually denied because it was too broad.
We just want to tap everything. We don't really have any reason.
But in October, right before the election, the famed, I believe it's New York Times, says that there was a FISA court granted. Now, what you have to understand is in all of this, it's all about smokes and mirrors. The Russian thing with Obama, what you hear, the Russian thing with, I'd say Obama, with Trump is about you're doing something.
Right.
So you, as a magician, have got to be saying, watch my hand over here, watch my hand over here.
We say that a lot, but it's true because that's what they're doing.
And Trump and Russia are over here like, what the heck is going on over here? And it's like, don't worry, I'm just doing a magic trick. Okay?
They actually told that to Putin, and I don't know if you guys remember that, but they really did say to him, like, don't worry, we're just doing this because
Putin came out with an interview and he said, I heard Americans whisper in my ear say, don't worry about this, we're just making this happen for election.
Right.
Okay? So, what I want to get to, and I'm going to play this really quickly. This is James Clapper. He was the director of the CIA just until recently. He, in my opinion, is not a good dude. He's part of the WikiLeaks from the CIA.
Probably a little deep state.
But he is asked here on Meet the Press, did you find any evidence in all of your investigation that Trump colluded with the Russians? Now, what did we hear over and over again?
That Trump colluded with the Russians.
Maxine Waters, senators, House representatives.
They are ready
Obama
to have
himself,
him impeached.
because of his collusions with the Russians. But
Yes.
listen to this.
Revelation at this point. Let me ask you this. Does intelligence exist that can definitively answer the following question, whether there were improper contacts between the Trump campaign and Russian officials?
We did not include any evidence in our report, and I say our, that's NSA, FBI, and CIA with my office, the Director of National Intelligence, that had any reflection of collusion between members of the Trump campaign and the Russians. There was no evidence of that included in our report.
I understand that, but does it exist?
Not to my knowledge.
If it existed, it would have been in this report.
This could have unfolded or become available in the time since I left the government.
Probably
We're
not.
just not gonna let it die.
At the time, we had no evidence of such collusion.
There's a lot of smoke, but there hasn't been that smoking gun yet. At what?
Yeah, there's a lot of smoke. You know what? It's just kind of dry ice. What are they when they make that fake? It's
You're
fake. It's not
making
real
it
smoke. There's no
happen
smoking
over
gun.
and over
It's
again.
fake.
All right, so we're just going to go straight to this interview. I hope you stick with us because this is a really good interview.
We want to know what took
with
place.
Mark Levine here on Fox and Friends. Okay, so here we go.
Joining us now, live from Levine TV studio, is the former Chief of Staff to Attorney General Edwin Meese, a constitutional lawyer and radio talk show host, the great one, Mark Levine, from his hidden bunker. Mark, thank you very much for joining us this morning. On your Thursday evening radio broadcast, you laid out a devastating case about executive overreach of the Obama administration, which many believe metamorphosized itself to tweets that President Trump sent out on Saturday morning accusing potential wiretapping in Trump Tower. We want to give you a case here this morning to lay out what you know about it, the evidence you have for the potential executive overreach of the Obama administration.
Well, pleasure to be here. The evidence is overwhelming. This is not about President Trump's tweeting. This is about the Obama administration's spying. And the question isn't whether it's spied. We know they went to the FISA court twice. The question is, who did they spy on? The extent of the spying. That is, the Trump campaign, the Trump transition.
He's going to lay out his case that they did go to the FISA court twice. But guess what? There's so much fake news that the CIA director, what we just watched, says that there was no FISA court thing. But
Trump
listen.
surrogates, and I want to walk you through this, the American people. Exhibit 1. Exhibit 1. This is all public. Head Street. 2 separate sources with links to the counterintelligence community have confirmed that the FBI sought and was granted a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court.
That's what FISA
This is spying. In October, giving counterintelligence permission to examine the activity of, quote, U.S. persons in Donald Trump's campaign with ties to Russia. Let me go on. This isn't me. They say the first FISA request, sources say named Trump, was denied back in June, denied by the court. But the second was drawn more narrowly and was granted in October after evidence was presented of a server possibly related to the Trump campaign and its alleged links to 2 banks. Now, sources suggest that a FISA warrant was granted to look at the full content of emails and other related documents that may concern U.S. persons. Now, I know people are hung up with Trump's word wiretapping. Well, how'd they get access to this server information? Does it really matter if it was wiretapping, electronic surveillance, or whatever it was? Exhibit 2, The Guardian, a well-known right-wing British paper. Here it is.
That's...
Quote, The Guardian has learned the FBI applied for a warrant from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court over the summer in order to monitor 4 members of the Trump team suspected of irregular contacts with Russian officials. Keep in mind, this is during a presidential election. The sitting president, the incumbent party, is now investigating the presidential candidate of the Republican Party and his campaign to some extent. The FISA court turned down the application asking FBI counterintelligence investigators to narrow its focus. According to one report, the FBI was finally granted a warrant in October. Exhibit 3, McClatchy, another well-known right-wing newspaper. Here they have.
The FBI was granted it. I'm telling you that the CIA director said, I don't know of anything.
Right, but
You're
you're
not
the
in the FBI.
The agencies, headline, FBI, 5 other agencies. 5 other Obama administration agencies probe possible covert Kremlin aid to Trump. The FBI and 5 other law enforcement intelligence agencies have collaborated for months in an investigation into Russian attempts to influence the November election, including what...
They have been investigating Russia and Trump this whole time. You're going to tell... How do you think investigations are even taken? That they're even how do you even investigate something?
You have to have the legal right to go in.
How did they get Flynn's
Right.
conversation?
Exactly.
Other money from Kremlin covertly aided presidential-elect Donald Trump. 2 people familiar with the matter said the agencies involved in the inquiry are the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Justice Department, the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and representatives of the Director of the National Intelligence. Are you telling me Barack Obama didn't know what was going on in 6 agencies?
As you
Hold
go
on.
I'm
I'm not done. I need to make the case. Because the media seems to be confused about their own reporting. New York Times, another well-known liberal outlet, intercepted Russian communications, part of inquiry into Trump associates, January 19. The FBI is leading the investigations, aided by the NSA, the CIA, Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Unit. The investigators have accelerated their efforts in recent weeks, but have found no conclusive evidence of wrongdoing. Listen to this. One official said intelligence reports based on some of the wiretap communications have been provided to the White House. This is the
That is the New York Times. Says that there was wiretapping and it has been provided to the White House.
So I believe
That was before Trump was in the White House. Now, it is either fake stinking news and we're all up in stinking horse poo and all kind of stinking fake news, lying to us, or they're lying to us. Someone here is lying to us. Someone's lying. And it's not Trump. And you know what, right now, it ain't Russia.
You think they're going to print a retraction because they just now had to come back and say no, that there was no wiretapping?
New York Times,
Another
my
right-wing
Exhibit
outlet.
4.
Another right-wing outlet,
Let's continue. New York Times again. NSA gets more latitude to share intercepted communications. In the final days of the
More
Obama
latitude.
administration, the administration has expanded the power of the NSA to share globally intercepted personal communications with the government's 16 other intelligence agencies before applying privacy protection. Now, why would they do this on the way out the door? Well,
Now, I want to explain that. I know he explained it, but a lot of it goes really quickly.
Right.
And since, if you don't understand, at the end, right before Obama leaves, what he does is he expands the NSA. And he's like, okay, basically, our little phones and everything that they are tapping, you've seen Snowden. If you haven't, watch it. Suddenly, this information can just be spread over all 16 organizations.
And I don't know that you
before he
guys-
leaves. Right before he
I think a lot of
leaves.
you guys are aware of this, but just in case you aren't, these agencies don't always work together.
They don't like each other.
And they don't like each other. I mean, this is like the Army-Navy game, all right? And so they don't, there are avenues that have to be, and channels that have to be
and
crossed
privacy
in order
has to be redacted in a lot of cases.
give information from one
For privacy
agency
reasons.
to the next agency.
Right. Well, we have the right.
March 1, Exhibit 6. Obama administration rushed to preserve intelligence of Russian election hacking. In the Obama administration's last days, listen to this, some White House officials scrambled to spread information about Russian efforts to undermine the presidential election and about possible contacts between associates of President-elect Trump and Russians across the government. I'm not done. Exhibit 7, New York Times. Flynn is said to have talked to Russians about sanctions Trump took office. Well, where'd they get this information?
Good
Mark,
question.
you know, the FISA court, they're always monitoring the Russian ambassador, and so how do we know that? Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but there's an awful lot of other activity.
Sure.
Here we have Washington Post, one more, Washington Post, March 2nd. U.S. investigators have examined contacts Attorney General Sessions had with Russian officials during the time he was advising Donald Trump's campaign. The focus of the U.S. counterintelligence investigation has been on communication between Trump campaign officials and Russia. Listen to this. The inquiry involving Sessions is examining his contacts while serving as Trump's foreign policy advisor in the spring and summer of 2016. This has been going on for a year.
Mark,
Now,
as you do
They've been monitoring Sessions since the spring.
And what I love about this is that the New York Times and the Washington Post all seem to have this information, and
they're using
sitting president doesn't.
And here's the thing, what they're saying is, they're painting it in this way, like, we're watching them. We have all this information,
Right. It's a really good
and
thing.
So Trump is like, dude,
Hang on.
you've got all this information. Why do you have all this information? How did you get all this information? Why were you wiretapping me? Because they're trying to paint it like we're wiretapping. We have information.
Right.
Because they're trying to show you proof. There is no proof.
There's nothing.
This is a cat gun smoking gun. All right? This is bottle stinking rockets going off you could probably set something on fire. But this is not nuclear like they're making it out to be. Okay?
On your radio program, you lay out a devastating case based on public documents, as you point out, and not right-wing sources, but mainstream left-stream sources. How confident are you that this investigation, which was on so-called Russian hacking, but now
the New York Times and the Washington Post is going to either have to say, "Oh my gosh, we are fake news. We have been making things up, and the president took us seriously."
Right.
the White House says this morning will be broadened to looking into executive overreach? How confident are you they will find something there?
I don't know, but they already found something. The issue isn't whether the Obama administration spied on the Trump campaign or transition or certain of its surrogates. The issue is the extent of it. Mm-hmm. They went into court a second time. They were so aggressive. They waited 4 or 5 months. They go back in October, weeks before the general election. They narrow their request. All of a sudden, we have leaks coming out on Flynn. Then we have a horrible meeting that took place between Sessions and so forth. And I'm telling you, as a former chief of staff to an attorney general of the United States in the Reagan administration, these are police state tactics. Now, what did Barack Obama know? He knew everything I just read to you apart from 1 or 2 articles. You know how I know? It's in the newspapers. It's right there. So Barack Obama not only knew this, but he gets a daily intelligence briefing.
Exactly.
And let me tell you something about daily intelligence briefings. If your attorney general and your FBI is going to the FISA court, to get a warrant to investigate aspects of an opposition party in the middle of a general election campaign, how much you want to bet the President of the United States knew that?
I'm betting the farm.
Mark, we're about to hit a hard break. Is there any way you could stick around for 1 more minute and ask you 1 more question on this? Mark Levine. Mark, I got to tell you, even just in the break, the response has been overwhelming to the case that you laid out, which is devastating. And Abby and I were talking in the break about sort of where it goes from here, right, Abby?
Yeah, that is the question, because you laid out your case in this last blog. You're very passionate about the evidence that you have. And as Pete said, we have so many people writing us in saying, thank you for speaking your voice. They're right behind you on this. My question, though, how does this play out in the media? How are they going to continue to cover this story?
Let me first say, this is the case made by the New York Times, the Washington Post, McClatchy, and the rest of them. I just put it together as a former Justice Department official. And Donald Trump here is being attacked for what he tweeted. Donald Trump is the victim. His campaign is the victim. His transition team is the victim. His surrogates are the victim. These are police state tactics. I am telling you this as a former chief of staff to an attorney general. If this had been done to Barack Obama, all hell would break loose. And it should. And Barack Obama's statement is pathetic. Let me just say this. Where does it go from here? They ought to release both FISA court applications where they sought the warrant. The one in the summer and the one in October. So we know exactly what they were doing.
And if they do not exist, then the New York Times has got to shut up their doors and say, we are no longer a newspaper. And the Washington Post, they got to shut their doors because they have been shoving this false, fake news down our throats, telling us to eat it. And if it's a pile of you know what, they have to shut their doors. Because you can't mess with people's heads like this and then come back and say, I'm sorry.
That's number one. Number two, Congress needs to see the daily presidential intelligence briefings over the past year or so. Those are the beginnings of a serious investigation.
That's so very
Number
key.
three,
They're going to scramble to write
Republicans
them.
in Congress, you control the majority. If the Democrats do not want to assist, and they won't, because I'm starting to think Chuck Schumer and the others are participating in all this cover-up activity, then plow ahead without them. But this is important to the country. We cannot have a sitting presidential administration unleashing 6 federal agencies, intelligence and law enforcement. I don't mean the president personally sitting there saying, you know what, Valerie, Let's go get him. Obviously,
Well, he
the
probably
Attorney
did,
General
actually.
and the FBI were involved
Valerie
in this. This is how you get a
said-
Yeah,
FISA
Valerie said,
court
hey, we gotta go.
application prepared and submitted.
Do you
They were
think do you think former
No.
President Obama was involved in this, and if so, how much was he involved?
It's not.
I'm not Nostradamus here. I just think that we ought to find out. But I will tell you this: he's more involved than he says. I mean, it's his executive branch, it's his
Exactly.
Justice Department. Mine's to the IRS. All of a sudden, the IRS is targeting American citizens. I don't know anything about it. We have reporters, including James Rose in the AP, where the Obama administration did more investigations of reporters than any administration in American history. They're quite capable of
Obama
these things.
administration
But it doesn't matter.
investigating reporters.
We want to know what took place, and there ought to be public hearings on this stuff, too.
Yes.
I agree with the Democrats. Let's get to the bottom of this. So join me. Join us. This is the public
Yes,
record.
let's
It's the
do.
newspaper of record, the New York Times. Let's go.
Mark, there's another aspect of this when you mentioned Chuck Schumer a moment ago. He's been trying to block as many Trump nominations as he can and slow the process. And we had J. Christian Adams, a former Justice Department official you probably know well, on a couple of hours ago. And he was pointing to something very important here, which is now that Jeff Sessions has recused himself, the person in charge here is going to be a career bureaucrat. There will be career bureaucrats. He said the swamp won because you have people inside justice,
Right.
some maybe who have been trying to undermine President Trump, who are now in charge of this investigation.
Right.
And the chances of
That
Chuck
was
Schumer
the
and the
idea
Democrats in the
all
Senate
along.
Exactly. Why do you think they went after
confirming
Sessions?
the nomination of the Deputy Attorney General, a Trump loyalist, now seems nil. So they have seized control of this investigation, haven't they?
He just
And
said,
not only did
right now, the Deputy Attorney General is an Obama person.
Yeah.
And they have stonewalled Trump's
Appointees.
appointee for the Deputy Attorney General. This is what we call a really intense chess game. And you guys have to recognize this is the globalist agenda. This news right here is it doesn't get any bigger. It doesn't get this is the little guy. That's us, okay? Against the giant. This is David and Goliath. But I'm telling you, as Christians, I got anointing on me, we're gonna win. I want you to know, even if you're an atheist, don't worry, we got this. God has got this. Something happened when Trump got elected. Things changed. The Holy Spirit started moving. God started moving. Okay? Trump is there. He's the dude right now. Okay? But God is moving for justice. And I'm not talking about a theocracy. When you pray for somebody to be healed, that's how God moves. Okay? So he's going to bring healing to people. Why? Because Christians have been praying for years. We've been praying. We didn't want the transgender craziness and Obamacare and same-sex marriage and all these crazy things that have been shoved down our throat for years. And we haven't been out picketing. We don't go pepper spray people in their faces. We pray and we do good works. And guess what? It's working. And we get the truth out. We talk to people like you.
that they have squirred their appointees into the bureaucracy, and they're buying more and more time to
They're
do that.
buying time.
Okay, then recess appointed
Because they
deputy
have all the
attorney
money in the
general.
world.
Do that. Say, okay, I'm recessing appointing so-and-so as Deputy Attorney General of the United States. And then, because Attorney General Sessions recused himself from matters affecting the Russian investigation and so forth, then the Deputy Attorney General who is recessed appointed is the acting Attorney General for the purposes of an investigation related to this. So, Christian is right. He served the justice in the Civil Rights Division. I'm right. I served as Chief of Staff. I know exactly what's going on. He knows exactly what's going on. And the administration needs to respond.
Well, Mark, you laid out a devastating case. We know now why they call you the Great One. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark.
Okay, so this is not complete our Trump tweeting thing. I want you to stick
No, but this is
around.
really long, but I'm glad that Leah brought that to you guys.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to come back with like another segment on this. So just stick around.
Okay, like, comment, subscribe. It's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. Come back for us in a minute, and we have, it just keeps going.
I was called